Okay, so today we're diving into Six Sigma. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe even lived through like a company trying to implement it.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just a buzzword, though. I mean, it's been around for decades,
Right.
and it's still going strong. There's got to be a reason for that.
Yeah, and it went from this like niche thing at Motorola to being everywhere, it seems. So for those who don't know, like what exactly is Six Sigma? We're mainly using Wikipedia for this deep dive. Hopefully we can like unearth some interesting stuff.
Okay, so imagine you're trying to bake, like the perfect cake. Every ingredient measured perfectly,
Mm.
oven temperature exact, timing, everything.
Okay.
That's kind of the idea behind Six Sigma, but obviously we're not talking about cakes here. It's for any process.
So we're talking about reducing defects, making things more efficient, but with this almost like scientific approach. And that's where the whole Six Sigma thing comes in.
It does sound kind of, I don't know, futuristic or something, like
Yeah.
something out of Star Trek, but it actually comes from statistics. Basically, Six Sigma refers to a quality level where you'd statistically only find 3.4 defects for every million opportunities.
Wow. Okay, so back to the cake example. Like, you'd be making millions of cakes and only a tiny, tiny handful would have any problems.
Exactly. The goal is near perfection. It's no wonder companies like Motorola were drawn to it back in the 80s. They were dealing with all sorts of issues, competition, quality control. They needed a big change.
And they really went all in on it too. Didn't they trademark the term?
They did. They trademarked Six Sigma. That's how
Yeah.
much they believed in it.
And it paid off for them too. Didn't they save like billions of dollars using it?
Billions.
Hmm.
Our source mentions $17 billion in savings through various Six Sigma projects. And it's not just about saving money either. Remember those customer satisfaction scores we talked about?
Yeah.
Bank of America used Six Sigma to improve theirs by more than 10%. That's huge.
So it's not just about making things faster or cheaper, but better overall. It makes you wonder why every company isn't using it?
Well, it's not quite as simple as that.
Mm.
It has led to some incredible success stories, but it's not some kind of magic solution.
Right.
There's actually a lot of debate about how effective it really is, especially in certain situations.
Oh, like when does Six Sigma maybe not work so well? So Six Sigma isn't like a perfect solution for everything then.
Right.
You were about to tell me where it
Yeah.
might not work so well.
It all depends on the situation. Like, imagine a tech startup that's trying to create a brand new app, something that's never been done before.
Okay.
Six Sigma's focus on, perfecting existing processes, that could actually slow them down.
Yeah.
They need to be able to experiment, move fast, maybe even break things a little to come up with something truly innovative.
Right, right. It's like you wouldn't use the same tool for every job.
Exactly.
So when is Six Sigma actually a good fit?
It works best in industries where consistency is key, like manufacturing.
Okay.
Remember Motorola and those billions they saved?
Yeah.
One of their projects was about reducing defects in their cell phone production line. By really analyzing every single step, they figured out where the bottlenecks were and made the whole process smoother.
Yeah.
Fewer defects means less waste, faster production, happier customers. Everyone wins.
Right. So they used data to figure out what was going wrong and fix it. That makes a lot more sense than just saying, oh, they saved money. But I've heard some people say that even when things are pretty stable, Six Sigma can actually stifle creativity.
Yeah, that's a common criticism.
True.
Some people argue that by focusing so much on getting rid of defects, you create this environment where employees are afraid to take risks,
Or,
to
Mhm.
try new things. And those happy accidents, those are often where the really big innovations come from.
Right, so you could end up perfecting the wrong thing. Like
Yep.
you make the best flip phone in the world, but then everyone wants a smartphone.
Exactly.
But that's where like the human element comes in, right?
Hopefully.
Like if someone has a good idea, even if it's outside the process, companies aren't just going to ignore it, are they?
You would hope not. And to be fair, a lot of companies use Six Sigma alongside other approaches that encourage innovation.
Okay.
It's about finding a balance.
Makes sense.
But there's another criticism I wanted to mention, and it has to do with that 1.5 sigma shift we talked about earlier.
Oh, right. That sounded complicated. Can you remind me what that is?
Sure. So remember how Six Sigma aims for just 3.4 defects per million?
Yeah.
The 1.5 sigma shift is this statistical adjustment that's often used to take into account the fact that in the real world, processes can vary over time.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
not always going to be exactly the same every single time.
So it's like saying, okay, we're not going to hit the bullseye every single time, but we're going to be pretty close.
Yeah, exactly. But because of that shift, a Six Sigma process might actually be performing closer to 4.5 sigma over the long run.
Okay.
And some people say that this shift makes the results look better than they actually are.
So it's like you're claiming to be more accurate than you really are.
Kind of, yeah.
Hmm. But let's say a company understands these criticisms, but they still want to try Six Sigma. What should they keep in mind?
Well, the first thing is that it's not a quick fix. It's a long-term thing, and everyone needs to be on board,
Yeah.
especially the people in charge. If the leaders aren't fully committed to it, it's probably not going to work.
It's like any big change, I guess. Everyone needs to be on the same page.
Exactly. And just like you wouldn't use, a screwdriver to hammer in a nail, not every problem is a Six Sigma problem. You have to really look at the situation and see if it's the right approach.
Right, so how do you know if it's the right fit?
It often comes down to whether you're trying to, make something that already exists better or create something completely new. Six Sigma is great for optimizing existing processes, but it might not be the best tool if you're trying to, say, invent a groundbreaking new product or figure out how to navigate a market that's constantly changing.
So for those more like out there challenges, what do you do? Just forget about Six Sigma. So if Six Sigma is like, fine-tuning a machine, what do you do when you need to build a whole new machine?
Right. It's not that you completely abandon the idea of structure and processes, but
Yep.
you need a different approach. Think about the early days of the internet.
Okay.
Imagine trying to apply Six Sigma to those early websites with dial-up and everything. It just wouldn't have worked.
Because the goal wasn't just to make a slightly better website. It was a
Right.
totally new thing.
Exactly. And that kind of radical change, it requires a different mindset. You have to be okay with experimenting with some risk, even with failing sometimes.
So what do you use in those situations?
That's where things like agile and lean startup come in.
Okay.
These approaches are all about adapting, getting feedback, and making changes quickly.
So instead of aiming for like perfection from the start, you just try to get something out there and then keep improving it.
Exactly. It's a
Yeah.
more iterative process.
Interesting. So it seems like it's not really about saying one method is better than another, but just understanding what each one is good for
Absolutely. It's about having the right tools for the job.
and knowing when to use them.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a really interesting look at Six Sigma, and I think there's a lot for our listeners to think about.
Definitely.
It's not just about eliminating defects, it's about finding the right approach for the challenge you're facing. And sometimes, maybe you even need to create something entirely new.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.